Hi guys, so as this description says, we are going to look at a £10 smart repair gun. Now this isn't something that we've done before, gone for a gun this cheap, but this is something that we've been asked to have a look at. Now in this video we are going to cover the whole base coat and the whole clear coat stage, and also use a clear coat that is more readily available to everybody, whether you be DIY or professional, just to show that a £10 spray gun really can paint a £25,000–30,000 car. So this isn't an all sort of like normal review that we do on a spray gun wise. I can't say that I've ever done a £10 spray gun review, but we are going to do this just the same as we would review any other spray gun. As you can see, rather than having a nice polished finish, it has got this slightly odd painted finish. But to compare it to my Starter 3000B, the Starter itself would cost £268 and this little Amazon thing would cost £10. Now we're going to put away the Starter for this one. Hopefully it won't be too offended at me using this £10 gun on this Audi. It is a 0.8 setup, and I have left the link in the description so you guys can see the actual gun that we've used, and if you so feel like it, you can order one for yourself. It's maybe something that the more DIY guys would be looking at, for maybe doing a little job like the bumper smart repair that we've just done a video series on. This spray gun, you could put something, do a little job, something like that with it. So the first thing that I would say about a £10 spray gun straight from the off is that a little gun like this is not going to last as long as something like my Starter. The main reason why we use such expensive guns is because we do use them day in day out, and we need them to perform just as well each and every use as they do basically as soon as they come out of the box. Now something like my Iwata W400, that's my everyday base coat gun, is a £300 odd gun. Now a lot of people would think, wow, that's a lot of money to spend on a base coat gun, but I've had that gun now pushing around about 3 years, and it still sprays exactly the same as it did the day I bought it. I've done absolutely nothing to it apart from change a pot where I dropped it once and I actually cracked the pot. But in 3.5 years, for that gun to have lasted at a cost of say £300, that for me is more than worthwhile, and it's still spraying as strong now as it was the day that I bought it. That's why we buy the higher end guns for doing the job that we do. Now that's not to say that you can't use a £10 gun to spray a car like this, because this is a £25,000–30,000 Audi. It's pretty much brand spanking new, and as you'll see in this video, it can do a job like this. It's not quite as easy and quite as simple. As you can see there, the fan on this thing is absolutely tiny compared to my Starter, which did make trying to paint and blend this rather fun. But a gun like this, if we were to soak it in thinners or leave thinners sitting in it every day like I do on my other guns, so when I wash them out I leave about ½ an inch of thinners in the pot just to make sure that none of the paint inside the fluid tip or anything ever dries up, and it will rinse out easily. If I was to do this with a gun like this, then I could genuinely say that I'd probably be worried about all the seals falling apart, and probably a half of the gun falling apart, if I'm quite honest with you. But just to prove a point that one, not only a £10 smart repair gun can do the job, but also it's not always about the gun, it's more about the painter. Because we do get comments on the channel sometimes along the lines of sort of like, the only reason that you can put out a car like that or put out a finish like that is because you are using a £300, £400, £500, £600, £700 spray gun, and that is not true. It shouldn't really matter what sort of gun you're using, so much so. Obviously if you've got a gun that's complete and utter crap, then you're not going to be able to get a decent finish out of it. But a little gun like this, for a little smart repair job or a little touch up job like this on a boot, it literally just had a little scratch where someone's knocked the boot on it. A little gun like this you can use and will perform well enough. As I said, it's not as easy and not as simple, but it can be done. So settings wise on this, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what I had this set at the time. I did find that I had to have the pressure quite high on this to get it to atomize the paint nicely. I had to pretty much wind the fluid tip till it was almost falling out, wind the needle back so it's almost falling out the back of it. in order to get a decent amount of paint and to try and make that fan as big as possible. As you can see, you will see me in the video play with this gun quite a few times because the air pressure and the fan were a bit tricky to get right in a way that I could paint this boot. The actual lads at the shop that I work at were having a good laugh and a joke about this, saying that I can't believe you're going to go paint that Audi with that £10 spray gun with all them spray guns you've got on the wall. But this video, not only for the purpose of you DIY guys out there, to show you a little gun and a more affordable little gun compared to the everyday ones that we use as professionals, but also, as I said, to prove that a £10 spray gun, as ridiculous as it seemed on the day to actually be painting this car with this spray gun, can actually be used and can actually put out a good job. I would say stay tuned to the very end of this video if you want to see my personal thoughts as a professional about this spray gun and what I think about it. So in this video, not only are we using obviously the £10 spray gun, but I'm also trying to use materials for you DIY guys that are more readily available. Now I'm using 100ml of solvent base coat for this job, which is a brand called Mobihel. It's nothing majorly spectacular like Sickins or Maxmay or anything like that. Mobihel base coat you can get from a lot of paint suppliers these days, and it's something that's more easily available for you guys at home, or for you DIY guys, or for you guys that are just testing out or just starting out. And the actual clear coat that we're going to be using for this is a colour mix clear coat. It's a 2-to-1 mix. When I put it through one of my normal guns, normally I'll put it through at just 2-to-1, but I did have to put it through at 2-to-1 and 10% fast thinners for this. But again, the colour mix 2K clear coat, I think it retails around about £18 for a 1 litre kit. So for you guys that are maybe trying to learn at home, as I said, or for maybe you DIY guys and stuff like that, again, that's a more affordable clear coat than something like the Maxmay 0300 that we normally use, which is about £120–130 for a 5 litre kit. But as I get to the clear coat stage, I will drop the name and also the info for the clear coat down again. So as you can see, compared to something like Masara, it is taking me a lot longer to actually base this job up, just because with this gun having a little bit of a smaller fan and being a little bit trickier to spray with, I am having to alter how I would normally paint this job quite a lot, just because I can't quite get the build and the coats down how I normally would. And that's the thing, the biggest thing for me using this one. It's a bit different from the norm with it having such a small fan, so it was a little bit more difficult for me to actually work my blends and actually get this area coloured up nicely compared to what it would be, say, Masata. Now one thing I would say, if you do go for one of these little mini touch-up guns, maybe try and go for a 1.2 over a 0.8. I actually went for this 0.8 because it was the actual cheapest spray gun that I could find on Amazon UK, and this was my point with this video, was to try and find the cheapest spray gun that I could find. And this little Audi job was a perfect match for this gun really. It's a little blow-in job, which is something that you guys might attempt at home. So it was the ideal spray gun for the job, being the cheapest one we could get hold of, and also a nice small little blow-in, which is the sort of job that you're more likely to do at home. So now we have got the base coat stage out of the way, we're just going to give this thing a quick rinse out, and then we're going to move on to the actual clear coating stage. So again, for the clear coating stage, you'll have to excuse the fact that I have no idea what my settings were, because I kept changing settings as I was going along, and rather than doing sort of like a normal pass, I had to alter my spraying a lot on this to actually do a couple of passes over and over to get the build and the sort of finish that I wanted. But that's not to say, with a bit of perseverance, that I couldn't get this job to look how I wanted it. To be honest, I didn't think this was going to come out all that great at the end of this paint job. I was wondering whether I was going to have to crack one of my bigger guns out and give the boot a coat with, say, the Evo or with the Pro Light or something like that, and just give it an extra coat of clear just to make sure it was evened out so I could polish it up after. At the end of the video, you will actually see the kind of finish that we achieved on this boot with this little minigun. And I have to say, well, I won't say now, but you'll see at the end whether I was impressed with it or not. So we've got this gun cleaned out now, and as I said before, something that's a little bit more readily available to you DIY guys and new guys that are starting to learn at home is this colour mix clear coat. Now I find that through a big gun you can put this colour mix at 2 to 1, it's got a great flash off time, and for the money it's actually a really nice clear coat. It doesn't need a lot of finishing work if you get it down right. If you can get it down right, I would use it on a few jobs this week, and I can literally give it a real quick spot, nib and polish. There's no need to flat and polish the whole job. You can get away with a real quick spot, nib and polish. Now for this job I mixed up I think around about 125ml clear coat, and I didn't use it all either, and as I said I did add 10% thinners. Now the reason I added 10% thinners with the spray gun, which is something that I wouldn't have done with the starter, it's just because this little minigun has got absolute terrible atomization, so I just wanted it that little bit thinner so it atomize it that little bit better, because obviously whereas say something like the starter's got 4 or 5 air holes that will atomize the paint around the fluid tip, this has got basically, well, just the 2 that are actually next to the fluid tip, and then it's obviously got the 2 for the fan at the side. So I think my starter's got 8 holes and this has got 4, and the build quality on these guns isn't the best. I do show you a bit of the build quality at the end of the video and a little bit of a closer look at the gun, and this is one of the lads at our shop now actually having a bit of a laugh about the fact that I am going to walk in here now and use this £10 spray gun to clear coat this Audi, which everybody in the shop on this day thought I was absolutely bonkers doing. But for you guys at home and for you guys that have asked for this, I did say that now we are back up and we are back uploading, I would try my best for you guys to get some more content on here that you wanted to see, and if that means me struggling along trying to paint a 25 grand Audi with a £10 spray gun, then goddamn we're going to do it. So one thing that I do have to say about these cheap little miniguns is normally when you get them they're absolutely hammered in oil. It's part of the manufacturing process. It's not as clean and not as well manufactured obviously as the higher end spray guns. These things are just knocked out, really cheap and really cheerful. So the best thing that I can say is do try and give this gun a real good clean out with some decent thinners before you even try and use it, just because if you don't, the chances of getting silicone and oil marks and God knows what in this first coat of clear, or in every coat of clear coat that you put on with it, is pretty sort of like, is going to happen really. And there's another one of the lads stood at the window now watching, just to see how this little £10 spray gun job goes on this boot. So this first coat, I wanted to put it down a little bit finer, just because I was a little bit worried about whether this was going to start popping silicone and oil and all sorts in this boot, because this isn't a gun that I've tested before. This was literally taken out of the box, cleaned, did this boot with it, and then you'll see what I did with it at the end of the video. So, and I like to do that with anything really. If I get sent a clear coat or something, I always get told to try it on a test panel first, but I don't really think that gives anything a fair review if I test it and test it and test it and test it and then I put it up. I always like to give my initial thoughts on it, and then if I like it, you'll normally see my altered thoughts as I go along and I post more videos with it. So something like the liquid glass extra fast, I was, you know, their advice was try it on a panel first, see how it sprays, see how it dries, but instead I did a whole job straight off the gun with it, because I think that gives a product a fairer test. Same as this spray gun really. Rather than doing a little test panel with this, I thought it'd be a lot better to just get on this job and just smash it on this boot and show you guys that it can perform for doing this sort of job, and just how well it performs. Now we've got the first coat of clear down then. I did go over that boot a couple of times because obviously being a 0.8 and having such a small fan, you know, I couldn't quite get the build on it, and you will see again that I don't just do a single pass like I normally would. I do go over this a few times just to make sure I have got the build and the finish that I want. Now that's something that you can do with a bigger gun, and sometimes I do on a bigger job when I've got down the side of a car and it's not quite smooth, or it's not laid down in one area quite as nice as I want compared to another area. There's nothing wrong with going back over it. Obviously you just have to be a bit more careful about the amount of build you're actually putting on your panel, because you don't want any runs, and especially with something like this that doesn't quite atomise as finely, you just need to be that little bit more careful. But as I'm sure you can start to see here, the actual finish on this boot is actually really nice. Now it's about time now that I do tell you that when we finish this job on this boot, one of the lads nipped 2 bits of dirt out of this boot and actually left it a complete gun finish. Now for this crappy little £10 spray gun, I was really surprised, because the build quality on this gun was appalling. It was missing parts out of the box, which I'll show you after we've just done a little bit on a wheel at the end. It didn't spray amazingly great. The atomization wasn't amazingly great. The build, the just general build and finish and manufacturing of it and everything wasn't exactly great. But we have just painted a 25-30 grand Audi. As far as I can best say, to be quite honestly, spotlessly. Like I say, there literally was 2 bits of dirt in that boot, and we left that boot gun finish, which for me, when I bought this spray gun off Amazon a week or so ago, I really did not think that I was going to paint a job like that with it and then not have to do a lot of flat polishing or a lot of messing around to make sure that that boot ended up looking right. So for you DIY guys at home that maybe want to do a little set of wheels like this, or you maybe want to do a little bumper corner blow in or something like that, I'd say a little gun like this for you for £10 is somewhere that you could start. Now for someone like myself, I could do a job like that Audi boot if that was a full paying job to myself rather than to the shop, and I could probably afford to throw this gun away. And it's not a gun that for me, I couldn't pick it up 3, 4, 5 times a day every single day for probably a week, and then it's something's going to go on it. One of the seals is going to go, or I don't know, the pot's going to warp, or something's just going to go wrong with this gun. I know it would, and that is the main reason for you guys at home that are not in a professional environment like we are. That is the only reason why we use such high-end, high-quality spray guns, is because we do use them day in, day out. So we have to have something that is really well made and will perform time and time again. And again, on something like this little minigun, if you want to do a little set of wheels yourself, it's an ideal little spray gun. I can't say that you're going to get a lot of use out of it, but for a tenner, I mean, if you get one set of wheels out of it and the guns cost you a tenner, well, I think you can't really ask for much more out of it, really. And like I said, that was basically one pot of clear to do both these little jobs. If we just take a little look at this Audi boot now it's had a little bit of time to flow out, you can see that it's flawless. I cannot knock the finish that I managed to get with this spray gun. Yes, I did have to go and put a lot more effort into it and try and paint it, put a lot more effort into painting it, and there's 2 little tiny bits of dirt there that I'm just pointing out, but that was it. For a £10 spray gun, this spray gun really did blow me away, really. And I will leave the link in the description for any of you guys at home that want to use it. So final thoughts wise, I mean, things like this, if I get this little brush and scrub this with some of our proper 2K thinner, this paint does instantly start to soften, and if I scrub at it, it does actually start to come away a slight bit, and you can start to pick little bits of paint off it. Now for me, that's no good. It's not something that I could leave to soak in thinners overnight and keep amazingly clean, because it's just gonna end up flaking off everywhere, and the chances of it flaking off and it might land in a panel when you're painting it or something like that, it's not great. And again, like I said, we like to leave thinners in our guns most of the time to make sure that everything's kept nice and clean and everything's kept inside the gun nice and moist so nothing dries up. But you know, for a £10 gun, you know, I don't think you're going to get a lot more than this really. I mean, as you can see here, it's actually missing one of the clips that holds one of the trigger pins in, so the actual trigger pins wiggling around everywhere. Air cap wise and inside, you can see it's just a very basic, and it actually managed to pull a big bit of crap out of the actual seal, where the actual seal is starting to come apart already. My final thought on this spray gun, guys, I'm going to leave this video here, and I'll see you again soon for the next video.